History doesn't always change in palaces or parliaments. It often changes in mud, blood, and chaos, in battles where the fate of civilizations balances on a knife's edge. And here's the scary part. If some of these battles had ended differently, the world you live in, your culture, your language, maybe even your very existence, would not be the same. Let's explore the great battles that shaped history, and the chilling what-ifs if they had gone the other way. The Persian Empire, the superpower of its day, invades Greece. At Marathon, a small Athenian army charges against overwhelming odds and wins. A messenger named Pheidippides is said to have run back to Athens, 26 miles, shouted, "Nike," and dropped dead. That's where the marathon race comes from. What if Persia had won? Athens would have been destroyed. No democracy, no Socrates, no Plato, no Aristotle. Western philosophy, science, and the very idea of freedom might never have been born. Alexander the Great, just 25, faces the Persian king Darius III. Outnumbered 5-1, Alexander pulls off a tactical masterpiece, charges straight at Darius, and the Persian army collapses. From Egypt to India, Greek culture spreads. Cities called Alexandria spring up everywhere. The Library of Alexandria later becomes the greatest knowledge center of the ancient world. What if Alexander had lost? Greek culture stays local. Rome never inherits Greek ideas. No classical tradition to inspire the Renaissance. The intellectual roots of our world would look completely alien. King Harold of England faces William, Duke of Normandy. For hours, Harold's Saxons hold the line, but then Harold is killed. Legend says by an arrow to the eye. The Normans win. The Normans bring French words into English. That's why we have both cow and beef. Over centuries, English becomes a rich mix of Germanic and French roots. What if Harold had won? English stays closer to German or Dutch. No Shakespeare's English, no Beatles lyrics, no Hollywood English. Today, the global language might be French or German. The Mongols had already destroyed Baghdad, Kiev, and half of Asia. No one could stop them. Until Ain Jalut. The Mamluks pretended to retreat, lured the Mongols in, then ambushed them. For the first time, the Mongols were decisively beaten. What if the Mongols had won? They could have swept into North Africa, then into Europe. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism might have been crushed. The Renaissance may never have begun. A massive Ottoman fleet meets a coalition of Christian ships. The sea turns red with blood. For once, the Ottomans are stopped. On one Christian ship fought Miguel de Cervantes, later author of Don Quixote. He was badly wounded, losing the use of his left hand. What if the Ottomans had won? They would dominate the Mediterranean completely. Italy and Spain might face invasion. The balance of Europe itself could have collapsed. Washington and his French allies trap the British at Yorktown. The British surrender. A band plays a tune called "The World Turned Upside Down." And it was. What if Britain had won? No United States. No Declaration of Independence inspiring the French Revolution. No wave of revolutions in Latin America. Democracy as we know it could have been delayed for centuries. Napoleon had escaped exile, raised an army, and in just 100 days threatened Europe again. At Waterloo, he almost wins. But the Prussians arrive in time, and Napoleon is crushed. He spends his last years in lonely exile on the remote island of St. Helena. What if Napoleon had won? Europe might have unified under French rule a century before the EU. The Industrial Revolution would unfold under Napoleon's dictatorship. The Germans besiege Stalingrad. Fighting rages street by street, building by building. Winter sets in. The Soviets counterattack, encircle the Germans, and starve them out. Out of 300,000 German soldiers, only 90,000 surrender. Few ever see home again. What if Hitler had taken Stalingrad? The Soviets lose their southern front and their oil supplies. Nazi domination of Europe could become permanent, with catastrophic consequences for humanity. On June 6, 1944, the Allies storm the beaches of Normandy. On Omaha Beach, U.S. troops suffer horrific losses, but push through. Paratroopers land behind enemy lines, scattered and isolated, yet they hold until reinforcements arrive. What if D-Day had failed? The Allies stay bottled up in Britain. From Portugal to Poland, the continent becomes one giant Soviet empire. Japan plans to ambush the U.S. fleet at Midway, but U.S. codebreakers crack the plan. In minutes, dive bombers sink 4 Japanese carriers. Japan never recovers. Admiral Nimitz later called it a miracle. What if Japan had won? Japan dominates the Pacific. Without 1-2 victory, the US might never rise as a superpower. Asia today could be ruled by a Japanese empire. History isn't inevitable. It's fragile. The world you live in, your language, your freedoms, the culture around you, exists because of desperate soldiers who fought in these battles. If even a few of these battles had gone differently, we'd be living in a very different world, maybe one where you wouldn't even exist. So next time someone says history is boring, remember, it's not just stories about the past, it's the reason you're here at all.